I got to meet Mahela and Sangakkara in person because they're like, man, this is a great idea. Then the Cricket World Cup came around. I'm like, wouldn't it be cool to see hundreds or thousands of people in the crowd wearing lion onesies, and the profits from those would go to a charitable cause. And I know some doctors that use ChatGPT to organize their notes.
Yeah, okay.
That information
Organize their notes, not to come up with
not management. What do I do with this heart attack?
This patient is coming with pink skin and yellow eyes.
Yeah.
What does he have?
Powered by WinLads.
Hey guys, it's Tanila and welcome to Under the Coconut Tree, where we interview serial entrepreneurs and those with a business mindset. Today we have Sudesh Piyatissa. Welcome to the show, Sudesh.
Thanks, Tanila, for having me.
Nah, no worries at all. You're doing some pretty cool stuff, but before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, sure. Look, so I've been a doctor for about 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm at the moment. I work in general practice in sports medicine as well as emergency. But the journey's been a long one.
Yes.
And over the last 4 or 5 years, I've finished an MBA, this year. And that's kind of taken me towards health tech and digital tech,
Right.
which is really where my passion is. Just trying to make change in industry that change doesn't happen quickly,
Right.
but needs to happen. And that's really where my career is focused at the moment.
All right,
But,
cool.
yeah, outside of that, there's lots of things.
I mean, that's very strange. You've gone to school about 15 years after high school to study, and then you've become a successful doctor as a GP. Then you've gone back to do your MBA.
Yeah.
Give me the thought process about how you went from, all right, I'm a successful GP, now I want to go study again in MBA.
Yeah, I think for me, at the end of the day, income, money, those things weren't the focus.
Okay.
I'm very privileged to be a doctor, very privileged to have a very good income, but I've really wanted to start a business or push the boundaries in what I can create. And the team I have is very important, but to get to that stage, you kind of need to learn a few things, whether it's marketing, operations, strategy. So I was like, I'll just do an MBA.
Yep.
It was COVID, perfect timing. I was like, all right, what else can I do?
So you thought, let me study more.
Yeah, let me get more debt.
Or more debt, yes.
Yeah, more.
So, I mean, I guess I could say that you've had that business entrepreneurship mindset for a little while, even while you're studying medical degree, or did you kind of decide after medicine, or, what, I think I'm kind of bored of this, or I want to try something different. Where did that...
That's a very good question, because I think for me, if I look back, and obviously hindsight's 2020, would I have done medicine at 18? I'm not sure. Maybe I would have done. Actually, I got into business commerce at Monash University.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
At Monash University.
Yeah. So that's what I got into, and as in, like, that was one of my after school kind of
Thoughts
and when you preference stuff.
Oh, the list of 12.
Yeah. So they gave me a scholarship, but then I got this medicine offer. I'm like, all right, I'll do medicine. Yeah. But I was tossing up between business kind of.
So it's always in your mind, like, oh, maybe business is for me. But then you're Sri Lankan, so then your parents were like, you should probably do medicine. If you got into medicine, do medicine.
Look, I mean, my parents were pushy. It's interesting. My parents are very supportive. They're like, do well at school.
Yeah. But
do whatever you want afterwards. So they were like, if you want to do...
So your parents were the rule to the exception, I guess?
Yeah. They're like, why did you miss out on those marks at VC? But so my brother did medicine, so I was like, it's a bit of a northern star.
So they had one doctor in the family. That was enough.
Like, maybe to make it two. But to go back to your question, if I were thinking, I was doing little projects and side hustles since uni days, and my brother, he would start tuition companies back in the day, and food companies, and he's a doctor, right? So for me, I think I've always wanted to push the boundaries in creating something, and marrying up business and like a program or a platform or whatever the business is kind of just made sense.
All right, cool.
The MBA kind of formalized it.
Yeah.
Especially all the thoughts that go through your head. I don't focus very well sometimes. So going back to lectures and like, all right, do this for 3 months and 2 years, whatever it is.
There's too many business ideas going through your mind.
100%, man. There's so many things, and I'm not sure if that's a part of society at the moment. We get distracted very easily Instagram, social media, those kind of platforms really harness our level of focus to monetize their companies.
It's all about ROI and bottom line for them.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So for me, it's like, well, I got to make sure that I can focus at least to do one thing.
Yeah. So did you have any kind of businesses that you started during your uni days or a few years before you did your MBA?
So different ways.
Yeah.
So you probably have noticed, and we talked about it before, but Pride of Lanka was a charitable business, you could say. But I wanted to create a brand, make money for a charity in Sri Lanka, which is Foundation of Goodness, which again you may have heard of. Kumar Sangakkara and Mahela, they're all part of it, and they're ambassadors for it. And I was in medical school at the time, and the Cricket World Cup, 2015 Cricket World Cup was coming around.
Yeah. We bumped into each other there.
We bumped into each other, yeah. And actually, the previous year to that, I had travelled overseas.
Right.
I took a break from med school, and me and my good mate, we travelled around the world, and we had a blog called Two Brown Lions.
I have read incepts of the blog,
yes. So we did everything, man. We went to Egypt, we climbed Kilimanjaro in these lion onesies. We went to Russia and Croatia in these lion onesies. We got kicked out of the Kremlin because we were taking photos. And
I think getting into the Kremlin lion onesies is actually pretty
amazing. And we
amazing.
see these guys looking at us going, get out of here.
Yeah.
And then the Cricket World Cup came around. I'm like, wouldn't it be cool to see hundreds or thousands of people in the crowd wearing lion onesies, and the profits from those would go to a charitable cause.
Yeah.
And so I designed these lion onesies with a logo and hashtag Pride of Lanka with a play on words and things like that, and roped in some really good friends of mine, and again you would know them, Jehan R and a few others, and we created video clips and merchandise, and we got YouTube videos that went on to Fox, and I got to meet Mahela and Sangakkara in person because they're like, man, this is a great idea. Let us be part of it.
Because they were ambassadors for the organization.
For the Foundation of Goodness.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So was that your primary goal? Because you're like,
really wanted to meet Sangha.
I don't blame
you. I have to create some money, charitable money. I'll do it.
So the whole thing was quite philanthropic, right? I mean,
So I mean, it's a business in a sense, but it was really, I wanted to, create, make some money for this charity. And it was over about 6 months of designing process, creating a website, putting it onto social media.
Was it your first time doing all these things?
Yeah. Cool. And at that time, I was like, I'll design the website, get Shopify, and see how you monetize this product. And then selling it, just like marketing. I love marketing. I think marketing is really where my passion is.
Well, you guys did a video. I remember that you pretty much emulated the Lion King and the Simba and everything. And tell us a little bit about that. Like, how did that come about?
Again, I was like, who can I lean on? My creative friends, and Jehan I've known since uni days. We've done plays together, and he's kind of the beacon for Sri Lankans in Melbourne and Australia and worldwide. He's quite popular, especially during that time. He still is, and he's very successful in different ways.
And he's also very philanthropic, actually. Yeah.
Absolutely, lovely guy, and I'm very good friends with his wife, who I went to uni with. So it's a very good, team there. But and then another friend who was in the music industry. So we wanted to create a song, and we're like, well, Lion King makes sense. And went to Jehan's house, and we created this video. We put some backing vocals into it.
So you guys were actually singing in the background?
Yeah. Okay. And Dylan.
What can go wrong with lion onesies and 3 brown guys singing?
Right, yeah. I mean, this is going to be huge, obviously. So, that was part of creating something. Yes, I was lucky to have a good group of friends, and I think they're the ones that you lean on, your friends, your networks can really jumpstart these creative processes. But you still have to have the courage or creative mindset to do something. Yeah. And a lot of us do. Yeah. I think we all have a creative spark. It's just that courage to dive into it. Whether it's starting a business, selling ties or bow ties online, or a music gig, whatever it may be.
I feel a lot of people have those ideas, but go to the next stage. Yeah. There's a huge drop off. So the funnel is probably like, say, 100,000. You're probably getting like 10,000 of that, if that actually go into the next stage. You know what? Let's actually put some plans in action. Yeah. So I guess what made you envision that idea and actually make it happen, I guess.
Yeah.
What was a drive?
I think maybe it was ego. I was
Ego,
like,
yeah.
I just need people
Hey,
to
I
be
think
like,
successful
hey,
people need ego. I mean, you've heard Michael
There's
Jordan
got to be
speak.
part of it,
yeah.
I think for me, you got to find your driver, right? So if you're starting a business, I think monetizing and creating a profitable business is a driver. If your idea is to reach a lot of people, not necessarily monetizing it, but to reach an audience, I think that should be a driver. So when people start Instagram pages or social pages, great, love it. I think find what your end goal is, work backwards.
Gotcha.
I love reverse engineering because if I want to retire when I'm 45 or if I want to have a house in 3 years time or whatever it is, because that's your space, for example, or if I want to have 1,000 followers or 100,000 followers in 2 years under my Instagram banner, how can I get to that from starting now?
So like kind of set a goal of say 100,000 followers, that's 10,000 a month, so which means by the end of 6 months I've got to hit 60,000 followers.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, okay, cool.
So working backwards and then setting your little goals to get to that and then just like following that trajectory. And it's not easy because it's a downtick, right? So you go down in income, in time that you have for yourself before you see any progress. And that lag could be a few days, could be a few weeks. Often it's months or years. But I think that tenacity that you mentioned needs to be there.
You're absolutely right. I think tenacity is key. One thing that I've learned from seeing people like you do what you do and from my own personal experiences is that consistency trumps natural talent. 100% of the time.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, and I kind of drive towards being consistent in whatever it is you're doing. You could be the best toilet cleaner in the world and you could make $1 million. Honestly, you could.
Yeah.
But you got to be consistent. You know what I mean? And I think that's what most people lack. And then I've come across some unique individuals like yourself that are so consistent because you've done so many different things. And I mean, the lion onesie was fantastic. I have two, right? And we bumped each other wearing them actually at the SCG. But I guess that was kind of the start of it, and it kind of led to where you are now. And I'm kind of curious to hear more about what you started recently, which is in your undergrad space of medicine, I guess.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about this, man. I know it's called iScribe, and I know it's doing wonders in Australia and soon to be New Zealand too, but how did the idea come about? Because it seems pretty cool, man.
Yeah, look, it's and again, I want to agree with what you said before with consistency. I think that's really important, whether it's going to the gym or eating well or whatever it is, right? Consistency kind of shows the progress. With iScribe, so iScribe is a medical AI documentation platform that was started. Really, the brains behind it are a couple of ophthalmologists. And my brother's one of the other co-founders. Right. He's also a doctor, as you mentioned. But the idea stemmed from these eye surgeons, ophthalmologists, wanting to have a scribe. A scribe is someone that writes down notes. And there are medical scribes in the USA and even in Australia.
Like a special person in the room, kind of.
Yeah, so you've got a consultant, a doctor who's doing a ward round or a consult with a patient, and there's someone just writing stuff down just as they go along. And it's quite popular in the US. Right. And they're often junior doctors or someone with medical background.
Because I'm assuming the words are quite confusing for the
exactly.
Layperson.
Yeah. There's lots of hematology or whatever it is, right? So at the end of it, you've got these notes written by a medical scribe. They're expensive. So they're about $100,000, $120,000 as a job here in Australia, for example. Right. So one of the other co-founders, Chandra, him and his friend Dimitri, they've done AI fellowships in Stanford. They've done coding for a long time.
So they're doctors that have done coding? Or?
Yeah, doctors that do coding.
Yeah,
and they're like, why don't we create a medical AI scribe that I can talk into or take my notes, or I can do a consult, take my notes, and will intelligently organize the notes. Right. So the product iScribe, the platform's been around for a couple of years. And then Chandra went to medical school with my brother, so they've known each other for 25 plus years, and they're always joshing around with different ideas. And my brother was like, "This is actually a good one. Out of all the others that we have, this is a good one.
You need one to hit, man."
Yeah, absolutely. So this was around December last year.
Right.
I'll probably around August middle to late last year.
Yeah, but it's barely a year, right?
Barely a year. We
Yeah.
haven't been. We're a year, December 8th this year. So we're 10 months in. But at that time, they got talking, and Nimesh, my brother's like, "Hey, look, we've got this great idea, and you've done your MBA, or you're doing your MBA. You've got networks in medicine. Come on board." As in strategy and marketing and those kind of areas. As a co-founder, you kind of just putting on different hats, right? So I'm like, let's do it. But
the serial entrepreneur in you was like, I have to do this.
You have to do it, right?
Have to do it,
and you're going down a rabbit hole that you don't know where it's going to end. You don't know if it's going to end. And at that time, another ophthalmologist, Jamie, and an engineer, Will, were the co-founders, with different background, different specialties, came together. And
so it's just engineers and doctors so far, right?
And again, I think that's the beauty of iScribe, because it's founded by doctors, founded by end users, so we know what we want. And that was December last year, and fast forward now, we've got 23 in the company, all around huge. Australia. And every time we talk to doctors and clinicians and anyone that does a consult about iScribe, this medical AI documentation tool, they love it. But if I take a step back, because people might be like, "Oh, what is medical AI? What does it do?"
Yeah, tell us a bit more about that.
So one of the biggest burdens for doctors and clinicians is administration, writing notes and documentation.
There's heaps of jokes to be made on that comment right there, which I'm not going to get into. But I've never been able to read my GP's notes. I don't know what the hell he's saying.
That's a big one, right? But these doctors, at the end of the day, when they see a patient, they're either typing, and if you go see your doctor, they're often typing their notes, or once you leave, they're dictating a letter, and that letter goes to someone that types that letter. Whether it's a typist or their secretary. So you go see a cardiologist, they type their notes, they dictate that letter, goes to a typist, and that typist sends that letter back to the doctor. They review it, then they send it to their GP. So that information sharing would happen, could take a week or 2 weeks before.
Just to get those notes back to the GP.
That letter is like, oh, what did your cardiologist say? You want that information.
Right.
So with our program, with our platform, that you do a consultation with your patients, the notes are written and typed, and the letters are typed and written in 20 seconds.
So it's like real time, essentially.
So you just press a couple of buttons, it types it up, organizes as if you were writing it, as if you're typing it. So you don't have to dictate anymore, and it's ready to go. You can send it back to the doctor.
So it's just like a microphone that's recording. Do you have to give the patient props that this is being recorded or anything like that?
So consent is important, and data and security is a big one. Especially, AI is a word or a couple of words that people have a few flags that go up. But AI is everywhere. You put an address into Google Maps, you chuck on Netflix, you look at Uber. It's all an algorithm of AI. So it's choosing what you want to watch, or telling you, hey, maybe you should order these kind of foods. But it's all based on algorithms.
Because they're listening to you all the time, right?
100%, Every time you're on your phone, on social media and stuff like that, you probably used AI without knowing as soon as you wake up and jump on your phone. So AI is everywhere. It's, I guess, harnessing it or resisting it. And especially for doctors, security is important, especially with patients. So we've created this encrypted platform that the processing never leaves Australia. It's in Microsoft Azure silos here in Sydney. And
that's pretty important to know, I think. Most people are quite, after everything's happened with Medicare and Optus and all that, I think, or Medibank, I think it was. It's important.
And without even thinking, Tanila, you put in any information into ChatGPT, which is what a lot of people know about AI and these large language models and OpenAI. If you put something into ChatGPT, and I know some doctors that use ChatGPT to organize their notes, that information actually,
organize their notes, not to come up with
no management. What do I do with this heart attack?
This patient is coming with pink skin and yellow eyes. What does he have? You have lupus.
Oh, it's SpongeBob SquarePants. So you put into ChatGPT, that actually gets processed in Texas, US. So you're putting patient information, sensitive information is going overseas, and that's a concern. Some doctors, dictating notes, they're sending it to Philippines or overseas to get it typed because it's cheaper.
Encrypted, right?
Probably not.
Right. Okay.
So there are, you should ask your doctor where they send their notes, but GPs don't often. They just write their notes, type their notes. But yeah, I think data and security is a big part of it.
Yeah.
And having a company that like us, like we're certainly a big part of our makeup.
I think from what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as a layperson, it almost seems like this whole data breach and security thing was always existing anyway. And now that the words like AI are often thrown around, people are trying to be a bit more, hey, you got to be more careful about my stuff. It was always an issue anyway. And if anything, you're more protected using things like iScribe. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yeah. So look, I mean, iScribe is it's a platform for note generating and letter generating. So we're not a patient management system, which other doctors still use, and I think that needs to be very carefully monitored and managed. We still do the same, but our platform is really to help and increase efficiency for doctors. Yeah.
To increase the turnaround times, I guess.
Yeah.
Or lower the turnaround times, rather. Yeah.
And look, I mean, there's different value props for this. So, if I could tell you a story about when I was a registrar in a lower socioeconomic area in Broadmeadows, great area, and the medicine that you do in these kind of areas is quite quick.
Right.
So you're often just, as a doctor, you're just typing away
while you're talking to the patient. What are you talking, like 10-minute consults?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you miss things. If you don't look at someone, if you're not engaged with that person, you miss things.
I mean, also, you are human after all, right?
Yeah, right. But if you can talk to someone and look at them at the same time, we get patients that come in with depression, but they're like, I'm just tired, I've got low energy, and if I'm not looking at them, and I can't see them fidgeting, or if their eyes are a bit more drawn out, or you miss those kind of clues.
Physical cues.
Yeah, physical cues.
Yeah.
So this example, again, I was a junior doctor, so I had a bit more time, but this young woman came in with her husband, and the husband was the one talking, right? So she came in with a UTI, which is a urinary tract infection, but the husband was talking, and I was watching, and she was fidgeting and eyes darting around.
She was uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable.
Right.
And I could see that because I had time. I was looking at it. And again, I was a junior doctor, so my books weren't filled to the brim. I had time with patients. Anyway, I could see that she was uncomfortable for whatever reason, and I had alarms kind of go off in my head because the husband was talking a lot, which doesn't always happen. Anyway, gave her the script for antibiotics, and afterwards I talked to my female colleague because they came from a religious background. Gotcha. So I talked to my female colleague, and I'm like, hey, look, I'm a bit concerned about possible domestic violence kind of thing. Can you go call up that woman that I saw? And sure enough, there was something else going on. But had I just been on my keyboard, looking at the monitor and just hearing this story, you miss those cues.
You would prescribe something and that's it.
Yeah, and you miss something else. And I think managing patients isn't just writing notes and giving scripts out, or providing information. Just watching them, listening, as is two-way.
Absolutely.
So communication is a big part of medicine, and for us, iScribe helps with that. Being able to focus on your patient, engage with your patient, because you miss things that would or should be part of the management.
But generally goes amiss because of everything else you have to do in the space of 10 minutes, I guess.
Yeah, and look, I mean, not to detract from doctors, we're busy, and the whole system's kind of geared against that doctor-patient relationship. It has to be quick. You're waiting 6 months to go see a specialist. So there's a lot of other factors.
External factors, I guess. Yeah.
So if we can somehow find a pain point, such as administration, that could really help a doctor do what they do best, which is be a doctor with their patient.
Without the other issues that arise.
Yeah. So instead of typing, instead of being like, I have to spend 3 hours a day writing my notes and discharge summaries and letters, if I could just see the patient, focus on the patient, then it's a better interaction. Everyone wins.
Yeah. You spoke about pain points before. I guess what I want to draw in is, now that you started iScribe, what are the challenges that you and your team have faced starting this AI. I know there's probably a very
there's
long list because it is very challenging. But if you could pick out like 2 or 3, what are the biggest issues you're facing with iScribe, either within your own team or when you're going out to meet medical professionals?
So I think we've got a good product. So the product kind of sells itself. But when we're taking it back, competition comes into play.
Okay.
Managing people, managing a company, a growing company, a fast-growing company takes its toll.
Yep.
And not just managing people, but finding the right people. I'll give you some broad headings, and then we can dive into it. And certainly cash flow is vital. So I sold my house and diving full into this.
So you're balls deep in.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm
living
in a shoebox. I'm a doctor that's living in a shoebox, but I want to make iScribe work.
Eating Maggie noodles and student life.
Get the big goreng, man. That shit's better.
That shit's good. So look, at the end of the day, I think cash flow is important with any business, but also it's a AI and medical AI. It's a incredibly rapidly growing space.
Yeah.
So we're kind of trying to meet demand, but also figuring out as we go along what the direction is. And if something goes wrong, how do we fix it?
Okay.
Lots of things have gone wrong. Lots of things are going to go wrong. We've got there are other competitors in the market. How do we manage that? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I think competition is great. Competition makes you elevate. But then how do you try to reach your target audience when there's peripheral distractors? And you've got family and relationships and other things to manage, life to manage, right? And also as a co-founder, you're not cutting yourself a check. So, going back to eating whatever you can kind of stuff. But I think the biggest thing about starting a business and like with iScribe is uncertainty.
Yeah.
We've got a great team, so we can lean on the specialty advice of different people. So the guy that codes, he's the CTO.
Yep.
We've got one of the other ophthalmologists, he's put on the chief operating kind of role. COO.
Yep.
And I'm VP of growth, so marketing kind of space. Nimesh, he's the CEO, so he's very deep in that investor space and managing that. So we've got different hats, and one week I'm salesperson, the other week I'm like, how do we increase our market share? How do we use Google Analytics? So not just the uncertainty, which is a big part of it, it's how do we prioritize our skills for the benefit of the company?
In the most efficient way, you'd say?
In the most efficient way.
Right, okay, cool. Yeah. Interesting.
So I mean, I've finished my MBA, which is great, and MBA is it's a generalist kind of program. You've done an MBA,
yes,
so in terms of what it teaches you, it's 3 months each of about 20 different subjects, right?
It's fast-tracked,
right? But I'm happy I can talk to someone in marketing, I can talk to someone in strategy or operations. I went to Canada and did 6 months of business design and healthcare consulting.
That's really cool.
As part of the MBA, which is great, which is, again, very privileged, and I'm lucky I had the opportunity to do that. So those kind of that time has given me, some instruments that I can utilize in business, such as iScribe, and the fact that I can marry up my undergrad, which I still love, and I'm
You're still practicing?
I'm still practicing in emergency and in sports med, but I can utilize those experiences and understand those pain points to see how iScribe can help. So at the end of the day, we're end users in this game.
So you're frontline and at the back, right? I mean, because you're using the program, you're fixing the program as you go, you're understanding the little glitches that you have, and you can kind of go to your CTO or the IT guys and be like, hey, this happened, fix this. So I guess that's probably a faster turnaround time on improving iScribe itself.
100%.
So outside, I guess, just the lack of funding, or funding being an issue rather, in initial stages, I guess anything in infancy, right, is always going to have that issue.
Yeah.
What's the second biggest challenge you're facing as a team?
So back to the funding, absolutely. The good thing is we reached out to some key investors, like private doctors, to be like, hey, look, this is a great idea, and they also wanted to be involved, so they jumped on board. So that really helped, because
How are they jumping on board? Are you giving them like equity share or
Yeah.
what's the
so if you
of what you're willing to share? Obviously,
yeah, absolutely. So we went through our own rounds of pre-seed and
like
seed.
angel investing kind of stuff.
No, yeah, look, angel investing and VC, that's a different kettle,
Yeah,
and we don't want to go down that path, not at the moment anyway, because the more you get external investors, the more diluted your shares and equity is. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, more chefs certainly, but we want to partner up with key doctors or people that if you are part of it, you're also talking about it, you're using it, so it spreads quite organically.
Strategic as well.
Very strategic.
Gotcha.
And they love the idea, they love the product, and they're part of the company now.
And then they're using the product too, I'm assuming.
They're using the product, yeah. So this more than others, but part of a good company is the team.
Yeah.
You can have the best idea, but if you got people that don't get along or they have different directions that they're going in, it's going to fail, or likelihood of failing is high. So luckily, we've created a great team that helps move the dial in the right direction.
Yeah.
So yeah, funding and the team is certainly one of the first big issues that any company has.
Yeah.
We've been lucky to stay afloat already for this long, and we've got runway, and we're partnering up with more investors, but different investors.
Yeah.
And yeah, second point, I know you talked about the second part of challenges. I think it's the people. Again, yes, the team.
Do you mean the consumer or do you mean the team itself or just people generally?
Yeah. So let me think. Let's talk about the consumer.
Okay.
The consumer is important. I think, yes, the team and the framework around the team is incredibly important, like we talked about before.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're not creating a product that fits in with the consumer, then you don't have a product that will work. So
there's got to be a need for it.
There's got to be a need for it,
yeah.
And I'll tell doctors this idea, and they love it, right? But then after 2, 3, 4 weeks, they're like, "Oh, this is fantastic. Can I use it in different ways? Can this help me in operation notes, or when I'm doing surgery, or when I'm in my ward rounds?"
You're right.
So we have to listen to them, and we have to go back to our dev team, our development team, and engineers, and be like, "Can we do this? Can we move the direction of iScribe to fit in with our consumer?"
Okay, so is iScribe quite fluid in terms of making small adjustments to cater to specific needs in that field?
Yeah, so we can customize it to a neurologist or a hematologist or a cardiothoracic surgeon or an ENT surgeon.
I know what all those words mean. Yeah.
Yeah, so an eye doctor or a knee doctor.
Yes, many syllables, yes.
Yeah. So look, I mean, you know this. Again, there are a variety of doctors, and the way they write their notes and do their consultations is different. So we have to make sure that our product fits with those specialties. And I think that's part of the fun, because we've got different specialties within the team, whether it's an orthopedic surgeon, a bone doctor, or an ENT surgeon, or an anaesthetist, and etc. We're listening to our consumer and saying, yes, we can do this, but also, do you want to do this? Some people have great ideas and they want things, but when they go back to their workflow,
it's not practical.
It's not practical.
Yeah.
So there's no point creating something if the pain point doesn't exist. But also the pain point and creating something needs to kind of be, there needs to be a bit of symbiosis.
Yeah, okay, cool. And I guess now that you've, about a year in, you've got 23 people on your staff. That's including the founders?
Yep.
What's the highlights so far? I know it's very, very early stages, and I see your posts. You've got different places in Australia, rural as well as metro as well. But what's been the highlight for you as a founder and creator of iScribe thus far?
So one of the highlights, we're at a lot of conferences.
Okay, cool.
And conferences where we all go to conferences, but they're specialty based. So there could be a cardiology or a heart conference or a surgical conference, and we go to these conferences, right? We teamed up with some financial advisors.
I know a little bit about those guys.
You know a little bit about finance.
A little bit about finance.
A little bit about money. And again, this is when there are so many areas that can be improved with AI. There's a lot already in medicine that can be improved. How can we utilize and garner our expertise and kind of pivot the strategy towards a different profession. So if you go to see a financial advisor, you have a consult or a discussion, and one of the problems that people have, or a lawyer, is writing notes. So we built as a side hustle within the kind of company, we're like, hey, let's see if we can cater towards financial advisors and let's create a model that works in that space. And we did, and we got invited to talk at a conference in Brisbane with key financial directors around
That's
Australia.
Awesome.
And Microsoft and a few other or companies were there.
Right.
And I gave a talk about medical AI as a general topic, and then a bit about iScribe, how it's helping a lot of doctors and clinicians be more efficient, and then how can it be used. Here's this model. How and I do live demonstrations, and I know.
So while you're talking, it's like kind of showing what's being said.
So you probably seen all the problems with live demonstrations with Mark Zuckerberg and Meta and all these other big
or Elon
CEOs
Musk throwing a rock at the Cybertruck and it breaking.
That's it, right? So live demonstrations can go in two different directions.
It's 0 or 100. There's nothing in between, man.
You have to tell people, hey, look, this could go wrong. If the internet, if my hotspot isn't perfect. So look, but when I show live demonstrations, not just to doctors and consumers, but also these other clients in different spaces, and I show them how iScribe can listen to a consultation or a discussion and eke out all the medical information, perfectly organize that into different headings and the body of text that you would otherwise be writing or typing, and they see that happen in 20 seconds of the conversation. You see their mind just be like, whoa.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So is that accurate, is it?
Is that accurate?
Yeah. You'll have to show me demonstrations sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. After this, I can show you. But
it's super cool.
And just showing people how, doing a 5-minute or 2-minute fake consultation and discussion and showing how the letters are generated, they're just in awe. So that's my favorite.
That means those are medical consults. So you can kind of trigger it to be more finance, language related. It could be law.
Look, I mean, a lot more clever people within the company, the engineers within the company, and the AI coders in the company. They're the ones doing all the engineering behind it.
You're doing an important job. You're like, yes, I give them ideas, they make things happen.
I'm sending like 100 ideas and like, Sudesh, no.
Should have stopped sending bloody emails, right? 9 out of 10 ideas not freaking working.
I think they're like, no, we got a priority list and yours is at the bottom. But so from that, you talk to one doctor, they love it. They talk to 2 doctors, and it's kind of like that exponential generation of word of mouth, right? So from that finance conference, I got invited to another conference in Perth. They're like, hey, Sudesh, that's a great idea, and we love it. Would love to talk to our team here in Perth.
Was that finance kind of related?
So it was a finance company,
right?
But on their books are just doctors, so just clinicians.
Yeah, right.
So they're like,
so their clientele is
physicians and doctors. So they're like, they would love to hear from you if they haven't already, because we're trying to market and stuff like that. And a lot of people have heard of medical AI. A lot of people have heard of iScribe. I mean, the medical world is small when you take the population of professions in Australia, but when one person talks, a lot of people hear
about it.
But it's making sure that you're getting the right information out and showcasing what your company is. So just that natural growth, that organic growth is what I love in this business.
That's a really cool answer. So essentially, you just doing what you love and sharing iScribe. In itself is creating word of mouth, which is ultimately fueling you to do more of what you started off with.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. And I can be like, well, if I had this before.
It's just like a never-ending circle. You're feeding yourself, which is awesome.
Yeah, and it sounds great. It sounds like it's going to keep on going. It's going to growing. It's only beautiful horizons, but with everything there are there's ups and downs and challenges and
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I also believe, I think it's important to believe in yourself that your vision and your dream is going to reach X amount of dollars or X amount of clients or patients or whatever it is, and have those goals. Because I don't think any company will survive if they don't have the belief. And I think, I think you have it. And I try to be optimistic about those things. And whenever I hear someone starting a new business, I think we had dinner actually a few months ago at this Japanese place, and I remember talking to you about it. I was like, I just love the fact that you bloody started this idea. I don't care if it does well or not. I hope it does well, and it is doing well, but I think the fact that you took that next step, like we were speaking about at the start, from that funnel and being that 1% of people who take the next step is having that belief within yourself, and to have a like-minded team seems like the best way to encourage us when things do potentially get tough as well. So don't give up, man.
Yeah, look, I mean, you touched on a fair few good points there, and it is that we all have, I'm sure everyone has a good idea or some idea, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a good idea. A good idea is only good if the outcome is what you've also envisioned, whether it's making lots of money or reaching out to a lot of people. If it's a good idea, it will get there. You certainly have to put the hours and effort into it.
Absolutely.
Be consistent, like you mentioned, but having that team around you. So look, I was lucky that I had a great team and a great idea, and I believed in the idea, because we can start a business, but if you don't believe in the business,
you're destined to fail.
Yeah, because when you talk to people about your business, they can see, people are smart, people can read between the lines, they can see it in your face when you're talking about it. If they don't see the glimmer in the eyes or that energy, they're like, they probably don't care much about it.
Or they don't believe in themselves. Why should I give them a shot?
Exactly. So you need people to believe in that idea, and for people to believe in it, you can't be fake. You have to be authentic, and to be authentic, you have to believe in your own idea.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a chicken or the egg kind of stuff. Right?
But most people have great ideas. Like, I was talking to another friend who started a business online on Instagram during COVID. During COVID, lots of things happened, and some people came out of it better. Some people came out with businesses and things like that, or you make your sourdough starter or your new beer or whatever it is.
Something would have worked. Something would have worked.
Yeah.
You gave it a crack, right?
Yeah, and they started a business based on baby plates and
baby plates, okay.
Baby plates and equipment, like things that toddlers and babies would use that are a bit more organic, for example. And she did really well, and lots of things happened in life, and kind of just petered away, but she believed in the idea. It was a great idea, and when I was talking to her, you can see that she really loved the idea. Things happen in your life where you have to either take a step back, or you just can't give enough time. And for me, I think I was quite lucky that I could give more time. I don't have children, for example, other big commitments. So
children are expensive, man.
Yeah, children are expensive.
Just avoid kids. Do your business. And buy a house before you have kids.
Yeah, make all the money, then have
kids afterwards.
I mean, my brother's got 2 kids and he's killing it, but
and he's also CEO of the company.
He's the CEO of the company, and I can see the challenges that he's going through in terms of managing time.
Yeah, right.
But he's got a very supportive partner, supportive wife, and again, not just the people within the company, it's those people outside. And you talk to I was watching the grand final recently in the AFL grand final, and when the Norm Smith medalist or the captain of these clubs talking, they always say, hey, look, the support network is super important, our partners, and I think that's again part of that success is the peripherals.
I do have 2 key points or things to talk over before I let you go. The first one is, I'm going to pronounce this on purpose for you because I want you to explain. But tell me how Acura came into place, and please pronounce it properly as well, so that people understand what I'm talking about.
So if you actually pronounce it correctly, you will actually understand.
No, I know how to pronounce it, but I want you to.
I'll tell you how to. So again, I'll take it back a few things.
Please do.
So my brother's the one that came up with the company name. So iScribe's our platform. And the company's Akuru or Akuru, which is letters in Sinhalese.
Absolutely.
And that's, I guess, the idea. So Akuru is the company, creates letters. We've got 3 of the co-founders are Sri Lankan. So sounds great. My brother also started a building company over the years, still doing it, and that's called Geval. So I was like, okay, this makes sense, right?
This man is a genius. All kind of lazy.
Or super lazy.
Super lazy,
It was like the target audience is very niche. So we talk to people, and they're like, oh, you come from Akuru. Is that Japanese? And like, Yeah.
Yeah. I
It's
love
Honda Akuru.
I know.
Yes.
That's exactly what when I first read it, but then I was like, Akuru.
Yeah.
Very clever.
So the idea of that is like a company, but iScribe is one part of it.
Yeah.
And down the track, we want to grow horizontally into
Yeah.
different spaces and see if we can tackle inefficiencies in different parts, not just documentation administration. But again, that's a long-term goal.
Yeah.
It might not happen.
You need to have the vision, though.
Yeah.
Ultimately, cut down SLAs is what it seems like, which
Yeah.
is what everyone wants to do because everyone wants everything done yesterday.
Yes, absolutely. Buy that house yesterday.
Yeah, I
I
know.
want those notes done yesterday.
That's actually really good advice. Buy a house yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Last bit. There's going to be heaps of people that watch this that are really curious about what you do.
Mm.
And people that might be a bit younger than us, they
Mm.
might be 15, 16, 17, or even in their early 20s.
Yeah.
Being a serial entrepreneur,
Mm.
what 2 bits of information and advice can you give to someone that's in that mindset at the moment? They're like, do I want to go do the stock standards thing and 9-to-5 job and do what mum and dad wants me to do? Or do I want to give this business idea a shot? What would be 2 golden points of information and advice?
2 pieces of advice.
Yeah.
So they might sound, so both pieces of advice might sound counterintuitive, but
It's your advice, man.
it's my advice. So the first piece of advice is you need to, if you're doing something, whether at uni or you're at a job that you don't love, and not everyone loves their job. I think most people don't love their job. They do it because it pays the bills, it pays the mortgages. You need to take a step back, so time away to see what you really want to prioritize. And that takes in a different kind of ideas. So yes, take a step away from your current job if you can, if you're lucky enough to do that. So I took a whole year off during med school and just traveled, and that helped me prioritize. Lots of things happened during that time, but it helped me prioritize. Do I really want to, really go through jumping the hoops in surgical training or just gunning for anesthetics or whatever it is? And, that could take 5, 10, 20 years. Some people are still going through that and they're 40, 45. But if you take a step back and take time to really focus on what you want to do with the rest of your life, take a week, take a month, go away on a weekend to one of those tiny cabins, take a notebook and write down what you want in your life. That will help galvanize those future decisions.
Yeah, right.
Because if you're not understanding what you want later, and if you're not spending the time focusing on just, writing that down or thinking about it, you might make poor decisions or decisions that you're not happy with. And also, if you're working really hard, you need to stop working really hard for a bit, because you can't cut a tree down with a blunt axe. You need to go sleep, have your 7 hours or 8 hours. Don't
sharpen the axe.
Because you need to be focused, right? So I think taking time away from what you're doing now to reprioritize is my first piece of advice.
Great advice.
And the second piece of advice is to jump in, to do it.
Straight in, balls deep in.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Because there's a bit of fallacy in, I really need to make sure that everything's lined up, all my ducks are lined up before I do something. But you need to fail 99 times before the 100th time is a good one. But to do that, we make concessions like, I've got a good idea, but it's not the right time, it's winter, or there's already a lot of competitors out there. I don't think I'll stand out. My Instagram following is only 100, and there's other people with 5,000 or 500,000, whatever it is. Or actually, my parents won't believe in it. I think that's probably a big one, especially in our cultural fit. So if you have parents that are supportive, even if they're not, you want to be able to have that talk with them if they're the people holding, or seemingly holding you back. But also it's often you holding yourself back.
Agreed, yeah.
Because you don't have you can't find that courage just yet to jump right in.
Yeah, right.
But if you've got a good idea, even if you don't have the instruments or the ingredients to make that recipe, create it somehow.
You made a really good point about this person has 500 followers or 10,000 followers. Famous quote that you probably have heard is, I think, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
So I think if you want to be joyful, have an idea, and get stuck in.
Yeah.
So just thank you so much for coming on, man.
No,
I
thank
learned
you
so
for
much
having
about
me.
it. What's the website so people can go check out iScribe?
Yeah, so it's i-scribe.com.au. That's our main website, and you'll find all the information on iScribe, the team, the platform, how it works, but i-scribe.com.au.
Thanks so much for coming for Under the Coconut Tree, and we're looking forward to see where iScribe goes, and I think it's going to do wonders.
Thank you so much for having me.
No worries.
Appreciate it.
Powered by WinLads.